My name is Marlene Davis. I'm 44 years old, born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been married to Victor Davis for 19 years, and together we have one daughter, Imani, who just turned 17. I'm telling you this because what I'm about to share sounds like something from a movie, but I promise you every word is true. Take a deep breath because what happened in my house on a Tuesday evening last spring is something I never imagined I'd live through. And the way I responded? Even I didn't know I had it in me. Picture this. I was standing in my kitchen, stirring a pot of my grandmother's pot roast recipe. The smell of slow-cooked beef, carrots, and onions filled the entire house. It was one of those rare evenings when everything felt peaceful. Imani was upstairs doing homework. The sun was setting through the window, casting that golden light across the countertops. I remember humming a song my mother used to sing while she cooked, and then I heard it. The front door opening, keys jingling, Victor's heavy footsteps on the hardwood floor. But there was another sound underneath his, something lighter, sharper. The unmistakable click of high heels. If this story is already speaking to you, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now to show some love to this channel. Subscribe to Black Lady Tales if you haven't already, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a story. And please tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing that my voice is reaching people all across this world. Now let me continue. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked toward the living room. What I saw stopped me cold. There was Victor, my husband of almost 2 decades, standing in the doorway with a smile I'd never seen before. Beside him was a woman. She was young, maybe late 20s, with honey blonde braids cascading down her back. She wore a cream-colored designer dress that hugged her figure, and in her hand she carried a Louis Vuitton suitcase. Her perfume hit me before her eyes did. Something expensive and floral, mixing with the pot roast aroma still drifting from my kitchen. Behind them, Victor rolled in a second suitcase, matching Louis Vuitton. The woman looked at me with absolutely no shame, no embarrassment, no hesitation. She just tilted her head slightly like she was studying a piece of furniture that might need replacing. Victor cleared his throat. "Marlene," he said, and I noticed he didn't call me baby like he used to. "This is Kendra. She's going to be staying with us for a while." Staying with us. Like she was a cousin visiting from out of town. Like this was normal. Like I was supposed to smile and offer her a glass of sweet tea. Kendra shifted her weight, one perfectly manicured hand resting on her hip. "Victor told me so much about you," she said, her voice dripping with something between pity and amusement. I could feel Imani, watching from the top of the stairs. I didn't have to look up to know she was there. A mother always knows. Victor's expression fascinated me. He was waiting, watching. There was something almost hungry in his eyes, like he wanted a reaction, like he was expecting me to scream, to cry, to throw something, to beg. Maybe that's what he'd told Kendra would happen. Maybe they'd discussed it, planned for it, prepared their responses to my tears. But here's what Victor didn't know about me. What he'd never bothered to learn in 19 years of marriage. I don't scream, I observe, I calculate, and I wait. So instead of giving him what he wanted, I did something that clearly confused both of them. I smiled, a real smile, warm even. "Enjoy it," I said, gesturing toward the staircase. "The bedroom's upstairs, second door on the right. You'll find fresh towels in the bathroom." I will never forget the look on Victor's face. His mouth opened slightly, his brow furrowed. Kendra's confidence flickered for just a moment. "What?" Victor stammered. "I said enjoy it, baby." I kept my voice light, almost cheerful. "The bedroom's upstairs. Y'all must be tired from all that planning." Then I turned around, walked back into my kitchen, and finished cooking my pot roast. I served myself a plate, poured a glass of wine, and ate dinner alone at my kitchen table, while I listened to them whisper frantically upstairs. Now I know what you're thinking. "Marlene, have you lost your mind? Your husband just brought his mistress into your home, into your bedroom, and you told her to enjoy it?" Yes, That's exactly what I did. But here's the part that makes this story different from what you might be expecting. Here's the part that had Victor fooled for 19 years and was about to destroy every plan he'd made. What Victor didn't know, what Kendra certainly didn't know, was that the very floor her designer heels clicked against belonged to me. Not Victor, not jointly, not in some complicated legal arrangement. Me, Marlene Davis, solely. The hardwood floors, the granite countertops, the stainless steel appliances, every tile in that bathroom where she was about to wash her face, every wall in that bedroom where she was about to lay her head, the roof over her pretty little braids, all of it was mine. And that's not all. The construction company Victor was so proud of, the one he told everyone at church he'd built from the ground up, the one that funded those Louis Vuitton suitcases and that cream-colored dress, that company was legally structured under my name. I provided the startup capital, I signed the paperwork, it belonged to me. Every single thing Victor thought was his was actually mine, and he didn't have the slightest idea. So yes, I smiled when Kendra walked through my door. I smiled because I knew something she didn't. I knew that every step she took deeper into that house was a step closer to the moment when her whole world would collapse. I smiled because I was holding cards she didn't even know existed. I smiled because I had been preparing for this moment for longer than she'd been alive. But to understand why I could smile while another woman moved into my bedroom, carrying my husband's child in her belly. Yes, she was pregnant. I'd find that out soon enough. You need to understand how I got here. To understand why I smiled that night, I need to take you back 19 years, to the day I married Victor Davis and made the smartest decision of my life, a decision he never even knew about. I met Victor Davis at a church picnic in the summer of my 24th year. He was 27, tall, with a smile that made you feel like you were the only woman in the world. He wore a crisp white shirt and spoke with the kind of confidence that made everyone around him pay attention. When he walked over to me and said, "You're too beautiful to be eating alone," I should have known right then that charm like that usually comes with a price. But I was young. I was hopeful. And I was exhausted from growing up the way I did. See, I came from nothing. My mama raised me and my two brothers in a 2-bedroom apartment off Beatty's Ford Road, the kind of neighborhood where you learn to walk fast after dark and mind your business. Mama worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and still there were nights when dinner was bread and butter and a prayer that next month would be better. Victor came from something different. His family wasn't rich, but they were comfortable. His daddy worked at the post office for 30 years. His mama stayed home. They owned their house. They had a retirement plan. To me, that was wealth beyond measure. So when Victor proposed after 8 months of dating, I said yes. And when we stood at that altar in Mount Olive Baptist Church, I meant every vow, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. I truly believed we'd build something beautiful together. What I didn't expect was for Victor to draw the lines of our marriage before the honeymoon was over. "I'm the man of this house," he told me on our 3rd night as husband and wife. "That means I handle the finances. You don't need to worry yourself about bills and money and all that. Just keep the house nice and let me take care of the rest." Some women might have argued. I nodded and smiled. Because 3 weeks before that wedding, my mama sat me down in her hospital room. Cancer had hollowed her out, stolen the strength from the woman who'd worked herself to the bone for us. She could barely lift her hand to hold mine, but her voice was clear when she spoke. "Marlene, baby," she said, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity I'll never forget. "Never let a man know everything you have. You hear me? Always keep something for yourself, something that's just yours. Because the day might come when that something is the only thing standing between you and the street." I promised her I would. She died 2 weeks after my wedding, never seeing me in my dress, never meeting her grandchildren. But her words stayed with me like a second heartbeat. So yes, I let Victor handle the finances. I nodded when he gave me an allowance for groceries. I didn't argue when he said investing was too complicated for me to understand. I played the role he wrote for me, but what Victor never knew was that I had my own script running underneath. I started small, coupons, store sales, skimming a few dollars here and there from the grocery money. I took on small side jobs, sewing alterations for church ladies, selling baked goods at the community center, tutoring kids in math. Victor never noticed. He was too busy being the man of the house to pay attention to what his wife was doing in the corners of that house. 6 years into our marriage, I had saved $18,000. Victor didn't know about a single penny. That year, a duplex came up for sale in a transitional neighborhood off Central Avenue. The seller was desperate, willing to take $17,000 cash. I made the purchase through a simple LLC I'd set up, using a library computer and free legal templates. I told Victor I was visiting my cousin for the weekend. Instead, I closed on my first property. He never asked. He never wondered. He was so sure I was exactly who he thought I was, his simple wife, grateful for his provision, too soft to survive without him. The duplex was a fixer-upper. I spent weekends there when Victor was working late. We'll get to those late nights later. Patching walls, painting rooms, learning plumbing from YouTube videos before YouTube was even popular. When I finally rented out both units, the cash flow was small but steady, and I rolled every dollar back into my next investment. By the time our daughter Imani was walking, I owned 3 properties. By the time she started kindergarten, I owned 7. Victor's career, meanwhile, was struggling. He bounced between jobs, always blaming someone else. His boss was jealous. His coworkers were incompetent. The economy was unfair. He had 1,000 excuses and 0 accountability. Then one day he came to me with an idea, a construction company. "I know the business," he said, pacing our living room. "I just need startup capital, maybe 30, 40,000. I pretended to think about it. Then I told him I'd been hiding away some grocery money. Not much, just a small nest egg. I could contribute. What I actually did was sell one of my properties at a profit. I handed Victor $45,000 and let him believe it came from years of pinching pennies on chicken and rice. More importantly, I structured the company myself. I filed the paperwork. The LLC, the business license, the tax registration, all of it was in my name. I told Victor it was just easier for legal reasons. He signed where I told him to sign and never read a single document. Davis Construction was born, and legally, it belonged entirely to me. Over the next 12 years, that company grew. Victor worked hard, I'll give him that. He brought in contracts, managed crews, built a reputation, but the success went to his head like cheap whiskey. The more money came in, the less he saw me. The compliments stopped first. Then the casual touches, the forehead kisses when he left for work. Soon he was criticizing everything, my cooking, my clothes, the few pounds I'd gained after having Imani. "You used to take care of yourself," he said once, eyeing me with something close to disgust. What happened? I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Meanwhile, I kept building. By our 15th anniversary, I owned 15 rental properties across Charlotte and the surrounding counties. By our 18th, my portfolio was worth over $4 million. I had accounts Victor didn't know existed, deeds he'd never seen, a net worth that dwarfed his, and I watched. I watched him stay out later and later. I watched him buy cologne I didn't recognize. I watched him guard his phone like it contained state secrets. I watched the credit card statements show charges at restaurants we never ate at, hotels in cities he supposedly never visited. I watched my daughter Imani watch us. She was too smart, that girl. She saw everything. The way her father dismissed me, the way he talked over me at dinner, the way he looked through me like I was furniture. For years, I told myself the late nights were just work. The new cologne was just him treating himself. The way he stopped touching me was just marriage getting comfortable. But on our 18th anniversary, I found out the truth. And it wasn't just an affair, it was so much worse. 18 years of marriage. I'd planned everything perfectly, made reservations at Mimosa Grill downtown, the kind of upscale restaurant we only went to on special occasions. I bought a new dress, burgundy silk that hugged my curves in all the right places. Got my hair done that morning, nails painted to match the dress. I wanted to feel beautiful. I wanted to remind Victor, and maybe myself, of what we still had, or what I thought we had. Victor seemed distracted the whole drive there. He kept glancing at his phone, typing quick responses when he thought I wasn't looking. I told myself it was just work, a contractor emergency, nothing to worry about on our special night. The restaurant was beautiful, soft lighting, white tablecloths, the gentle hum of couples enjoying intimate dinners. The hostess led us to a corner table with a candle flickering in the center. For a moment, I let myself believe this could be a turning point. Maybe Victor had just been stressed. Maybe tonight we'd reconnect. Our waitress arrived with menus and water glasses. She was young, early 20s maybe, with a bright smile and natural hair twisted into an elegant updo. She welcomed us, started to recite the specials, and then she looked at Victor. Her smile froze. "Oh," she said, and I saw something pass across her face. Recognition, then confusion, then poorly disguised panic. You're his wife." The temperature at our table dropped 20 degrees. "Excuse me?" I said, keeping my voice steady. The waitress laughed nervously, backing up a step. "I'm sorry, Victor talks about you. He comes in here sometimes for work dinners and he's mentioned, She was scrambling now, realizing she'd said too much. "I'll give you folks a moment to look at the menu." She practically ran back to the kitchen. I turned to Victor. His face had gone the color of ash. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He picked up his water glass, took a long drink, and set it down so hard it sloshed onto the tablecloth. "Work dinners," I repeated softly. "Marlene, don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just trying to understand why our waitress knows you bring women here for work dinners." "She didn't say women, she said work dinners. Don't put words in people's mouths." I sat very still. 19 years of marriage had taught me how to read this man. The defensive posture, the attack when I asked questions, the refusal to look me in the eye. We finished dinner in near silence. Victor complained about the steak. I pushed salmon around my plate without tasting it. When the bill came, he paid in cash, something he never did. I noted that detail and filed it away. The drive home was suffocating. Victor kept the radio loud, some sports talk show filling the space where conversation should have been. I stared out the window at the Charlotte skyline, counting the buildings I owned a piece of, the properties that paid their mortgages, whether Victor loved me or not. When we got home, Victor said he was tired and went straight upstairs. Within 20 minutes, I heard him snoring. I waited. 1 hour. 2. At 11:30, I slipped out of bed and walked to where he'd left his phone charging in the kitchen. He'd gotten careless over the years. His passcode was still our anniversary date. How ironic. The first message thread I opened told me everything. Her name was Kendra. She was 28 years old. She'd been working as a receptionist at Davis Construction for 4 years. Their affair had started 3 years ago, according to the message history I scrolled through with trembling hands. 3 years. While I was cooking his meals, while I was washing his clothes, while I was raising his daughter and lying next to him in bed at night. 3 years. But that wasn't the worst of it. I kept scrolling, my heart hammering so loud I was afraid it would wake him. And then I saw the messages from 2 months ago. Kendra. The doctor confirmed it. 4 months along. It's really happening. Victor. That's my girl. Our baby is going to have everything. Kendra. When are you going to tell her? I'm tired of hiding. Victor. After the holidays. I need to get some finances sorted first. She doesn't suspect a thing. She's too stupid to notice anything. Too stupid to notice. I read that message 3 times. Then I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself, to a backup account, to an email address I'd never told Victor existed. I screenshotted bank statements, calendar entries, hotel confirmations. Then I wiped my digital footprints, put his phone back exactly where I'd found it, and went to the bathroom. I sat on the cold tile floor and let myself shake. Not cry, not yet. Just shake. Letting the tremors move through my body like small earthquakes. Too stupid to notice. The words echoed in my skull. This man who I'd funded, who I'd built a company for, who lived in a house I owned free and clear. He thought I was too stupid to notice his 3-year affair with a woman now carrying his child. The rage was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It started in my chest and spread outward like fire, burning through every memory of his criticisms, his dismissals, his condescension. But I didn't let it consume me. I took that fire and compressed it, turned it into something cold and hard and patient. I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. Emotional explosions were for women who had no other options. I had options. I had property. I had documentation. I had 18 years of receipts, literally and figuratively. The next morning, I woke up before Victor. I made his coffee exactly how he liked it, scrambled his eggs with cheese, kissed his cheek when he came downstairs. "Happy anniversary, baby," I said, smiling. He looked at me with something like confusion. You're in a good mood." "Why wouldn't I be? 18 years. That's worth celebrating." He relaxed visibly. He thought he'd gotten away with it. He thought the waitress incident had blown over. He thought I was, as he'd told Kendra, too stupid to notice. I let him believe it. That same week, I made a phone call. Regina Cross, attorney at law, specializing in family litigation and asset protection. A friend from church had whispered her name to me years ago. "If you ever need someone who fights for women," she'd said, "Regina is your girl." Regina's office was in an uptown high-rise, all glass and polished wood. She was a black woman in her 50s, silver streaks in her locks, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed the screenshots I'd printed. 3 years, she said, shaking her head slowly, "and he thinks you don't know. He thinks I'm too stupid to notice." Regina looked up at me, a smile playing at the corner of her lips. "Marlene, I've looked at the documentation you sent over before this meeting, the property portfolio, the business structure." She set down the papers. "This man is living in your house, running your company, and stepping out on you with a 28-year-old receptionist, and he thinks he's the smart one? That's exactly right. Then let's make sure he learns otherwise." Regina leaned forward. "Here's what we're going to do. You're not going to confront him. You're not going to change anything about your behavior. You're going to continue being the wife he thinks you are while we build an airtight case. Document everything. Record conversations where legal. Note his spending, his absences, his lies. Let him dig his own grave." "How long?" "As long as it takes for him to make a move. Men like this, they get arrogant. He'll escalate. He'll ask for something. A divorce, a separation, money for his girlfriend. And when he does, we'll be ready." I left Regina's office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not hope, exactly. Something sharper. Purpose. For the next 6 months, I became the best actress in Charlotte, North Carolina. I cooked Victor's dinners and smiled at his stories about work. I pretended not to notice the new jewelry Kendra posted on social media, jewelry I knew he'd paid for with money from my company. I slept beside him every night, listening to him breathe, counting down the days until he'd reveal his hand. I watched Kendra's belly grow in the Instagram photos Victor didn't know I could see. I documented every cash withdrawal, every unexplained expense, every lie he told about working late when his location showed him at an address in South End where Kendra was renting an apartment. It was the hardest role I've ever played. Some nights, I'd lock myself in the bathroom and bite down on a towel so Imani wouldn't hear me cry. Some mornings, I'd stare at Victor across the breakfast table and imagine all the ways I could destroy him. But I waited. Just like Regina said, I waited for him to make his move. I spent 6 months pretending. 6 months of cooking his dinners, washing his clothes, sleeping beside a man who was planning to throw me away. And then, One Tuesday evening in March, Victor came home with a smile I'd never seen before. "Marlene," he said, "we need to talk." Those 4 words changed everything, but not in the way he expected. Victor found me in the kitchen that Tuesday evening in March. I was seasoning chicken for dinner, moving through the motions of a life I knew was about to shatter. He stood in the doorway with that smile, the one I'd learned to recognize as dangerous, and loosened his tie like he was about to deliver good news. "Marlene," he said, "we need to talk." I set down the pepper grinder, wiped my hands on my apron, turned to face the man I'd loved for 19 years, the man who'd fathered my daughter, the man who was about to show me exactly who he really was. "I'm listening." He walked to the kitchen island and leaned against it, arms crossed, casual, like he was about to discuss weekend plans instead of ending our marriage. "Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. This isn't working anymore. This marriage." He gestured vaguely around the kitchen. "I've been unhappy for a long time. I think you have too." I said nothing, just watched. "I've met someone else. Her name is Kendra. She works at the company." He paused like he expected me to react. When I didn't, he continued. "She's pregnant, Marlene, with my child. We're going to be a family." There it was. The words I'd known were coming for months, finally spoken aloud in my kitchen. The kitchen I'd cooked 10,000 meals in. The kitchen I owned. "I want a divorce," Victor continued, "and I've already talked to Kendra. She's going to be moving in here tonight." That's when my carefully controlled expression almost slipped. Not because of the divorce. I'd prepared for that. Not even because of Kendra. But the audacity. The absolute gall of what he was proposing. "Moving in," I repeated slowly. "Here. It makes sense. This is my house. I built this life. You can stay in the guest room until you figure out where you're going to go." He shrugged like he was offering me a generous compromise. "I'm not kicking you out on the street. I'm giving you time to get on your feet." Get on my feet. Like I was a stray he was allowing to shelter temporarily, like I hadn't raised his daughter and built his company and maintained his home for nearly 2 decades. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, the gray creeping into his temples, the slight paunch he'd developed from too many business dinners, the expensive watch on his wrist, a watch I'd technically paid for, though he'd never know it. He had no idea. None at all. "When is she coming?" I asked, my voice steady as stone. Victor blinked, clearly expecting tears or screaming. "About an hour. She's packing now." "I see." I untied my apron and folded it neatly. "I'll make up the guest room then." The confusion on his face was almost worth everything. Almost. 53 minutes later, I heard the front door open, the click of heels, the rumble of suitcase wheels on hardwood. And then, there she was, Kendra, standing in my foyer like she owned the place. She was pretty, I'll give her that. 28 years old, with smooth dark skin and honey blonde braids that fell past her shoulders. She wore a cream designer dress that draped elegantly over her pregnant belly. She looked about 7 months along now, round and glowing with the confidence of a woman who believed she'd won. In her hand was a Louis Vuitton suitcase. Victor rolled in a matching one behind her. Kendra's perfume filled the room, something expensive, something that would linger in my house for weeks. "Marlene," she said, looking at me with barely disguised pity. "Victor told me so much about you." I smiled, a real smile. "Welcome to my home, Kendra." She frowned slightly, probably expecting hostility. Instead, I gestured toward the stairs. "The bedroom's on the right. I hope you'll be comfortable." "I hope you don't mind," Kendra said, walking past me toward the staircase. "But I'm going to redecorate. The bedroom is so outdated. I was thinking modern. Clean lines, maybe some new furniture." "Whatever makes you happy," I replied. That's when I heard it. A small gasp from the top of the stairs. I looked up to see Imani standing there, her face crumpled with confusion and pain. She'd heard everything. She'd watched her father bring another woman, a pregnant woman, into our home. "Daddy?" Imani's voice cracked. "What's happening?" Victor's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. "Imani, sweetie, we'll talk about this later. Go to your room." "But room, now." My daughter fled down the hallway. I heard her door slam. Victor turned back to Kendra, all smiles again, and guided her upstairs to what used to be our bedroom. I stood alone in my foyer for a long moment. Then I walked upstairs to my daughter's room. Imani was face down on her bed, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I sat beside her and rubbed her back the way I had when she was small. "Mama," she whispered, "what's happening? Why is Daddy doing this? Why aren't you doing anything?" I leaned close to her ear. "Imani, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She rolled over, her face streaked with tears. "Trust you? This isn't over, not even close. But I need you to play along. Don't let your father or that woman see you angry. Can you do that for Mama?" Something in my voice must have told her I had a plan. My smart, observant daughter. She'd watched me navigate this marriage for 17 years. She knew I wasn't a woman who surrendered easily. "Okay, Mama," she whispered. "I trust you." That first night in the guest room was the hardest. I lay in a twin bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to laughter drift down the hallway. Kendra's laughter. In my bedroom, in my bed, with my husband. I didn't cry. I had work to do. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in humiliation. Kendra made herself at home with breathtaking speed. She reorganized my kitchen, moving spices and dishes to new locations and complaining about my cluttered pantry. She wore my robe one morning, took it from my bathroom like it belonged to her. She hosted her friends for lunch, showing off the house, accepting compliments on the decor I'd spent years perfecting. "Victor has such good taste," I heard one friend say. Kendra laughed. "We're going to redo everything once his divorce is final. This place needs a woman's touch." Victor, meanwhile, swelled with pride. He invited Kendra's parents over for dinner, giving them a tour of his home. He pointed out the chef's kitchen, the landscape backyard, the finished basement with its home theater system. He took credit for everything. "I built this from the ground up," he told her father, a retired postal worker who nodded with impressed approval. 20 years of hard work, and now I get to share it with someone who appreciates me. I served them pot roast and smiled. Every night I locked myself in the guest room and documented. I recorded conversations using my phone tucked in my apron pocket. I photographed receipts Victor left lying around, dinners, jewelry, hotel rooms. I organized my property files, triple-checked the business registration, verified that every deed was current and every signature was mine. Regina and I spoke twice a week, usually while I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot. "You're almost ready," she told me during one call. "Just a little longer. Let him get comfortable. Let him think he's won." "He's showing her family the house," I said, "telling them it's his." Regina laughed, a rich sound full of anticipation. "Oh, Marlene, that man is digging his own grave with a golden shovel. When this is over, he won't have a pot to piss in." The neighbors noticed, of course. People saw Kendra coming and going, saw her pregnant belly, drew their own conclusions. Some avoided eye contact with me at the mailbox. Others whispered behind my back. But a few, the ones who'd known me longest, pulled me aside with quiet concern. "Marlene, you doing okay?" my neighbor Dorothy asked one morning. I smiled. "Dorothy, I'm doing just fine." She studied my face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "You got something planned, don't you?" "Just waiting for the right moment." Dorothy patted my hand. "Give 'em hell, honey." For 6 weeks, I slept in my own guest room. For 6 weeks, I listened to another woman laugh in my kitchen, sleep in my bed, plan her future in my house. And then, on a beautiful Saturday morning in April, I decided I'd had enough. I put on my best dress, walked into the kitchen where Victor and Kendra were having breakfast, and said 7 words that wiped the smiles off both their faces. The morning sun poured through the kitchen windows like a spotlight. Victor sat at the head of my table, reading something on his phone, a half-eaten plate of scrambled eggs in front of him. Kendra was beside him, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other wrapped around a mug of herbal tea. They looked comfortable, settled, like they'd already won. I walked in wearing the burgundy silk dress I'd bought for our anniversary dinner, the one Victor never complimented. My hair was done. My makeup was flawless. I carried a thick manila folder under my arm. Victor looked up with mild irritation. "What do you want, Marlene?" I smiled, set the folder on the kitchen island, folded my hands in front of me. "You have 30 days to leave my house." The words hung in the air like a held breath. Kendra's tea mug froze halfway to her lips. Victor's expression cycled from confusion to amusement. Then he laughed, a deep, patronizing laugh that echoed off my kitchen walls. "Your house?" He shook his head, still chuckling. "Baby, you've lost your mind. Did you forget who pays the bills around here? Who built this life?" "That's an interesting question." I opened the folder and slid the first document across the island toward him. "This is the deed to this property. Take a look at the owner's name." Victor picked it up, still smirking. The smirk faded as he read. His eyes darted from the document to me and back again. This must be a mistake." "Keep reading." I slid another document toward him. "That's the business registration for Davis Construction. Notice anything interesting?" His face went pale. "What is this?" "The company you're so proud of? The one you tell everyone you built from the ground up?" I tapped the paper. I provided the startup capital, $45,000 from a property I sold. And because I'm not stupid, contrary to what you told Kendra, I structured the LLC in my name. You signed where I told you to sign. You never bothered to read the paperwork. "Victor." Kendra's voice was small, confused. "What is she talking about?" I continued, pulling out more documents. Bank statements, property records, investment accounts. "This house." My name. "The rental properties that fund your lifestyle." My name. "The construction company that paid for your mistress's Louis Vuitton bags." My name. I paused, letting each revelation sink in. "And those secret accounts you thought I didn't know about? The ones you've been draining to fund your new life with Kendra?" Victor's face twisted with rage. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." I squared my shoulders. "You called me stupid, Victor. In your text messages to Kendra, you said I was too stupid to notice anything. Well, I noticed everything. Every late night. Every lie. Every dollar you stole from our accounts to spend on her." "This can't be legal," Victor sputtered, standing up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "You can't just... I've worked for 20 years. You worked for a company I own. You lived in a house I own. You drove cars registered in my name because I told you it was easier for insurance purposes." I smiled again, cold now. "Your mistake was underestimating me." The doorbell rang. Victor and Kendra both jumped at the sound. "That would be my attorney," I said, walking toward the door. "Right on time." Regina Cross entered my home like a queen surveying her domain. She wore a sharp navy suit and carried a leather briefcase. Her silver-streaked locks were pulled back in an elegant bun. Behind her was a uniformed officer, not for arrest, just for witness and security. "Mr. Davis," Regina said, all business. "Mrs. Davis has filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial malfeasance. You're being served with the petition, along with an eviction notice giving you 30 days to vacate this property." She handed Victor a thick envelope. He didn't take it. It fell to the floor at his feet. "This is insane," Victor said, his voice rising. "I'm not going anywhere. You can't kick me out of my own house." "It's not your house," Regina replied calmly. "It never was. Every document proves sole ownership by Marlene Davis. You have no legal claim to this property." Kendra stood up, her hand pressed against her belly, her face a mask of dawning horror. "Victor, Tell me this isn't true. Tell me she's lying." Victor turned to her, then back to me, then to Regina. I watched reality crash over him in waves. The house wasn't his. The company wasn't his. The cars, the investments, the life he'd bragged about, none of it belonged to him. "Marlene," he said, his tone shifting suddenly to pleading. "Baby, listen to me. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. We can work this out. 19 years of marriage, you're just going to throw that away?" "You threw it away," I replied. 3 years ago when you started sleeping with a woman half your age. 6 months ago when you told her I was too stupid to notice. 6 weeks ago when you moved her into my bedroom and told me to sleep in the guest room." Victor's pleading twisted back into anger. "You planned this. This whole time you were planning to destroy me." "No, Victor. I was planning to protect myself. There's a difference." I looked at him, really looked at him, one last time. "You thought you were the one in control. You thought I was just the wife who cooked your meals and washed your clothes. You never once considered that I might be smarter than you, stronger than you, more prepared than you." I pointed toward the front door. 30 days. Pack your things and leave my house." "Where am I supposed to go?" Victor shouted, slamming his fist against the counter. "You're taking everything." "That's not my concern anymore." The officer stepped forward slightly, a silent warning. Victor's shoulders slumped. Kendra, meanwhile, was already heading toward the stairs, tears streaming down her face. The fairy tale she'd believed, the wealthy businessman who was leaving his boring wife for her, the beautiful house that would be hers, was dissolving in real time. "Kendra, wait!" Victor started after her. "Don't touch me!" She spun around, mascara running. "You told me you owned all of this. You said she was nothing, that she didn't contribute anything, that you built everything yourself." "I thought I did," Victor said weakly. "I didn't know." "You didn't know." Kendra's voice rose to a shriek. "You didn't know you signed over your company to your wife? You didn't know the house wasn't yours?" I stepped aside as Kendra stormed past me, heading upstairs to pack her Louis Vuitton suitcases. The same suitcases she'd rolled through my front door 6 weeks ago with such triumph. "Imani." I turned to see my daughter standing in the hallway, watching everything. Her eyes were bright, not with tears, but with something that looked remarkably like pride. "Mama," she said quietly, "you did it." I crossed to her and pulled her into a hug. "Always have a plan, baby. Always." Victor tried one more time. "Marlene, please. Everything I did, I was confused. I was stupid. But I love you. I love our family." I released Imani and turned to face my husband for the last time. "You don't love anyone but yourself, Victor. And loving yourself is fine. But you did it at my expense. You tried to throw me away after I built everything that made you feel like a man." I shook my head. "I hope Kendra's prepared to support you, because after the divorce is finalized, you won't have a thing." 2 hours later, I watched from my living room window as Victor loaded suitcases into the trunk of a car that was registered in my name. Kendra sat in the passenger seat staring straight ahead, not speaking to him. They drove away. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. I walked through my house, touching walls, running my fingers along countertops, breathing air that finally felt like mine. Then I sat down on my couch and cried, not tears of sadness, tears of relief, tears of release. 19 years of building, of hiding, of waiting, and it was finally over. They were gone. My house was quiet again, but the story didn't end there. What happened to Victor and Kendra in the months that followed was something I couldn't have predicted. And the lesson my daughter Imani learned from watching all of this, that's the part that still makes me cry. 3 months after Victor and Kendra drove away, I ran into my old neighbor Dorothy at the grocery store. She grabbed my arm with both hands and leaned in close. "Girl," she whispered, "I heard Victor's living in a 1-bedroom apartment over on Independence Boulevard. working for some other man's construction company. And that woman, Kendra, she's long gone. I wasn't surprised. Kendra had loved Victor's money, not Victor. Without the house, the cars, the company, all the things that were never actually his, she had no reason to stay. She'd moved on within weeks, finding someone she called more established. She had the baby, a healthy boy, but she wanted nothing to do with Victor. He'd proven himself worthless when it mattered. As for Davis Construction, my company, it thrived once I removed the dead weight. I hired a competent manager named Marcus who'd been overlooked for years because Victor preferred loyalty over talent. Within 6 months, profits increased by 40%. I finally had control of something I'd built in secret for 2 decades. But the sweetest change happened at home. Mornings became peaceful. I'd sit at my kitchen table with coffee and sunshine, no tension in the air, no eggshells to walk on. Imani started coming downstairs to join me, talking about school, her future, her plans. We'd been close before, but now we were allies, partners, 2 women who understood exactly what we were made of. The day Imani graduated high school, she stood at the podium as valedictorian and thanked me in her speech. My mother taught me that strength doesn't always look like fighting, she said, her voice clear and confident. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like silence. And sometimes it looks like building something so solid that no one can ever take it from you. I cried the whole speech. She's in college now, studying business. When I asked her why, she smiled and said, "I'm going to build like you did, Mama, except everyone's going to know about it." That's the lesson, isn't it? The one my own mother taught me from her hospital bed. The one I lived out in 19 years of marriage. The one my daughter carries forward now. Keep something for yourself. Not because you're expecting betrayal, not because you're planning for failure, but because you deserve to have something that is entirely yours. Something no one can take. Something that proves you were never as small as they tried to make you feel. I think about Victor sometimes, not with anger anymore. That faded faster than I expected. I think about how he saw me every single day for 19 years and never once noticed who I really was. He looked right at me and saw a simple woman, a grateful wife, a harmless housewife. He never imagined I was building an empire under his nose. His mistake wasn't the affair. His mistake was underestimating me. If you're watching this and you're in a situation where someone is making you feel small, I want you to hear me. You are more powerful than they know. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay quiet, plan, and wait. Don't let anyone convince you that you have nothing. You always have yourself, and that is enough. Now, before I go, I want to ask you something. If this story touched you, hit that like button and let me know. Subscribe to Black Lady Tales so we can keep sharing these stories. And please tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing my voice reaches people all around this world. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who lived to regret it, share that story too. We're building a community here, and your voice matters. Thank you for sitting with me today. Thank you for letting me share the hardest and proudest chapter of my life. My name is Marlene Davis. I let my husband's mistress move into my bedroom. And when she walked out those doors 6 weeks later with nothing, I finally understood what my mama meant. The most powerful woman in the room is the one nobody sees coming.